What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, here to break down and give my picks against the spread for the four biggest games in Week 12. We got Notre Dame taking on Pitt, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, one of the biggest games of the year, a potential spot in the SEC title game at stake. Playoff implications on the line. It doesn't get any bigger than Texas versus Georgia. Iowa travels to the Coliseum to take on USC, looking to avenge a heartbreaking 2-point loss against Oregon. Before we dive into it, if you live, eat, breathe, and die football, you have come to the right place. We're talking college football, NFL, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you're a football junkie, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you can get your football fix in. Check us out, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. JT Sports is available. If you enjoy the content and you want to support the grind, please give us a 5-star review. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews by the end of this year. We're 20 away from that goal on Apple. We got a long way to go on Spotify. I'm begging you. I'm literally on my knees right now. If you listen to podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. The links are down in the pinned comment section and description down below. And let's dive into it. Notre Dame versus Pitt. Notre Dame started out as a 10.5-point favorite. The line has now moved to Notre Dame minus 12.5 over the last 48 hours. This is a must-win game for Notre Dame. If they lose this one, then their playoff hopes are down in the gutter. Pat Narduzzi said that this isn't a must-win game for Pitt. I disagree with that statement. Look, although this isn't a conference game and it doesn't impact Pitt winning the ACC championship potentially, they still need to win this game. If they win the ACC, yeah, you're in the dance, but a win here maybe gives you a first-round playoff game. And there's a difference between having to go on the road and win in the playoffs versus hosting a home field playoff game. You rather have to play Alabama, Ohio State, Texas A&M, whoever at home versus having to play them on the road. So if Pitt does win out and they win the ACC, a win here gives you a first-round playoff game. It has to, because the committee views Notre Dame very highly. And right now, Pitt doesn't really have too many resume-building wins at the moment. So if you can take down a really good Notre Dame team and you win out, then having a home field playoff game definitely makes this game must win. I disagree with Pat Narduzzi saying this isn't a must-win game for Pitt, man. You're looking ahead to the ACC championship game, but you also should be thinking about the bigger picture. Home field playoff game, man. You want that. You need this game. And Pitt, their offense, ever since they made the quarterback change from Eli Holstein to true freshman Mason Heintschel, they've been really good. Mason Heintschel is 5-0 as a starter. He has a 12-5 touchdown interception ratio, and he's one of the more impressive true freshman quarterback that I've seen this year. Outside of Bryce Underwood and the true freshman QB at Maryland, I haven't really seen too many better guys than Mason Heintschel. Has a very good arm. Not the most athletic guy in the world, but he has enough athleticism that you have to account for it. And he's going to have his work cut out for him. This is the biggest test that he has had up to this point in his young career. You're going up against a Notre Dame defense that has a great secondary, a defense that also is top 10 in America in takeaways. And Pitt, their offensive line has been up and down this year. They also are 101st in rushing yards per game. So there's going to be a lot on Mason Heintschel's shoulders. And he's going to need to have a very good game if Pitt wants to have a chance of being able to win this one. Notre Dame, they're good on both sides of the football. We know how good their defense is, but their offense has been lights out with CJ Carr. He's playing as good as any other quarterback in the country. I'm shocked that he's not mentioned in the Heisman conversation, because he definitely is putting up Heisman-worthy numbers. 19-4 touchdown INT ratio. Tom Brady said that he also has been playing some really good football. When you get praise from the GOAT, man, you're stamped. You're official. And not only is CJ Carr playing really good, but Jeremiah Love, we know he's the best running back in college football, but Jadarian Price, he's not too far off. And Pitt's run defense is fifth in America. So even if Pitt is able to slow down the running back tandem of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, you're still going to have to find a way to slow down CJ Carr. And Pitt's secondary is pretty good. They do a really good job of forcing takeaways. Also, Pat Narduzzi normally has a pretty good defense, but there is a lot that Pitt needs to go right to even be able to cover that 12.5-point spread. I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover and give me Notre Dame to win 38-17. Anytime you have a true freshman quarterback going up against a really good defense, I'm going to fade the true freshman. And as good as how Mason Heintschel has played in his 5 starts, he hasn't played a team as good as the one that he's about to see this Saturday. If Pitt keeps this game close, they're going to need to be able to slow down Notre Dame's rushing attack. They're going to need some turnovers as well. And Mason Heintschel is going to have to put together the best true freshman quarterback performance in the history of college football. That's not hyperbole. That's what it's going to take to be the Notre Dame team that is not just trying to prove that they deserve to be one of the 12 teams in the dance, but they also have to do it really convincingly. They ran up the score against Navy. They've been running up the score all year long ever since their 0-2 start. So I just think there's too much that Pitt has to overcome in order to win this game, along with starting a true freshman QB against a stout defense. Give me Notre Dame 38-17 and the cover that minus 12.5-point spread. Oklahoma versus Alabama. The last time we saw Oklahoma, they put together a really impressive performance on the road to take down Tennessee. And they're a 6.5-point dog going on the road to take on the Tide. Oklahoma's defense is going to have to help their offense out. They say the best offense is a good defense. And against Tennessee, Oklahoma was running around like they were a bunch of wolves in the woods, man. Every time that ball got snapped, they were like, rah, 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 rah. They're really aggressive. They're fast. They're physical. I don't think Alabama has played a defense as good as the one that they have coming into town. Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds in college football, and he's going to have a hard task slowing down Ty Simpson and this Alabama passing attack. But Oklahoma's defense is good enough to keep them in this game. Ty Simpson is a rhythmatic quarterback. If you get him uncomfortable and you start being able to get a few hits on him, then you throw off his timing. He has a tendency to get a little bit rattled, and he can be a streaky quarterback at times. If he starts the game out slow, then it could be a tight game for Alabama. But if he starts out hot, then Alabama could run away with this game, because Oklahoma's offense needs their defense to help them put points on the board. They need their defense to force some turnovers, give them some short fields, because ever since John Mateer has come back from his injury, he has not looked like the same quarterback. His accuracy downfield has been really bad at times. And most of Oklahoma's big plays in the passing game have come off broken coverages, blown assignments, and you're going up against a really phenomenal Alabama secondary. So unless Oklahoma's defense is able to help them out, give them some short fields, it's going to be hard for them to manufacture long, 60, 70, 80-yard drives in order to score unless you get John Mateer's best performance of the season, which he's more than capable of being able to show out in this game. Alabama's defense, as good as what they've been this year, they have had a tendency to struggle against dual threat quarterbacks. And John Mateer, although he's not that great throwing the football right now, he still is one of the best quarterbacks in America when it comes to running the football. He runs like an ox. He breaks a lot of tackles. He's hard to bring down with just one guy. So if Oklahoma can get John Mateer going along with that ground game, which has come alive over the last few weeks of the season for them, then they have a shot at being able to hang around in this game. But Alabama really has to beat themselves in order to lose this game. We know that Kalen DeBoer is one of the best big game coaches in this sport. There's not a coach that has you more ready to play in big games against ranked teams at home than Kalen DeBoer. He has a great resume of beating some of the best coaches in college football, from Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart. We know Alabama's going to be up for this game. Is Oklahoma going to be ready to play? Because Alabama's defense, with the athleticism that they have on that defensive line and the inconsistencies and struggles that Oklahoma has had on the interior of their offensive line, there definitely is a huge mismatch that Alabama can exploit on the defensive side of the football. And offensively, even though they don't have the ability to run the football as consistently as what you would like them to, look, I still trust their offense a lot more than I trust Alabama or than I trust Oklahoma. And the difference in a lot of these SEC games comes down to the quarterback play. And I think that Ty Simpson, even though he may get out to a slow start in this game, he'll be good enough to put Alabama in position to win. And I just haven't seen enough out of John Mateer to trust Oklahoma's offense enough, unless their defense gives them a few stops, to not take Alabama to cover. So I think Alabama wins this one pretty convincingly. 34-17 is my score prediction for this game. I just don't think that Oklahoma's offensive line is going to give this passing attack enough time to really sustain enough efficient drives. And eventually, Oklahoma's defense will get worn down. They will get tired throughout the course of this game. And you'll see Alabama pull away in the second half. I think this game goes similarly the way that Vanderbilt game did, because that Alabama-Vandy game was a lot closer than what the final score showed, but you saw Alabama gradually pull away throughout the course of that game. As the game progressed, Alabama started to prove more and more why they were the better team in that contest, and I expect the same thing to transpire in this one. The biggest game of the week, Texas versus Georgia. You have a spot in the SEC championship game at stake. Playoff implications on the line. Georgia's a 6.5-point favorite going into this contest. And they're going up against a Texas team that is getting hot at the right moment, because Arch Manning in his last 2 games has played some of his best football. He's thrown 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and it's overlooked how talented of a team Texas is. Texas has arguably the best roster in college football. They have the most expensive team in America, and the reason why they haven't played as good as what they were expected to coming into this year is Arch Manning getting out to a slow start during this season. But you rather play your best football late, because this is when you are trying to make that playoff push. And if Arch Manning plays as well in this game as what he has over these last 2 contests, then Texas could end up winning this game. And I don't think it's crazy to believe that Texas has a 60-70% chance to beat Georgia in their home territory because Georgia's defense is not that good. When you think Georgia and Kirby Smart, you affiliate that with elite defense. But Georgia has been Georgia this year. And the main reason for that is their defense just not being that great. They aren't that good getting after the quarterback. They are one of the worst teams in America at producing sacks. And although Texas' offensive line has had their fair share of struggles, I don't think Georgia's pass rush is good enough to take advantage of that. They are 125th in sacks per game. And their secondary is also hit or miss at times. And they're not that good at forcing turnovers like how they have been in years past. Previous Georgia teams have had ball hawking secondaries. And Georgia's secondary this year is far from that. So with the struggles that Georgia has had defensively, Tennessee put points up on them, Ole Miss put points up on them, Arch Manning should definitely be able to carry his hot streak from over his last 2 games into this contest against Georgia. And if he's playing great football, then that also means that Texas defense is going to be really good also. Because if your quarterback's playing good and you're able to have efficient, methodical drives and your defense isn't on the field for more plays than what they should be, and Texas has a better defense than what Georgia does. Texas can get after the quarterback. They also are really good against the run. They have the 3rd best run defense in college football, and they also are 29th in takeaways. And we know that Georgia does have the ability to play a complementary style of offense. Gunnar Stockton has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also has chipped in on the ground. And I don't question Georgia's ability to win a game off the shoulders of Gunnar Stockton. But is that really the kind of game that Georgia wants to get into? Do you really want to get into a shootout with Arch Manning in Texas? Because if this game does end up being a shootout, then it favors Texas because the upside, the ceiling is a lot higher from Arch Manning than what it is with Gunnar Stockton, because you just have a better efficient passer in Arch Manning when he's at his best as compared to Gunnar Stockton. And I think that the difference in this game will be the quarterback play, like it is for a lot of games that end up coming down to the wire in the SEC. But with Texas defense, though, with how they can just blanket the run game, if they can make Georgia a one-dimensional team and they can tee off those pass rushers, that makes this game one that Texas has in their favor. But Georgia's offense, though, which is why I say Georgia isn't Georgia this year. Georgia kind of feels like an old school Big 12 team because their offense is the main reason for why they've been as good as what they've been this year. We know Gunnar Stockton hasn't been flashy, but he's been efficient. Only a handful of turnovers, 22 total touchdowns. He's completing nearly 70% of his passes. They have a lot more talent at receiver this year than what they had last year. They don't have guys with the dropsies, guys that got butterfingers. Zachariah Branch has the ability to break this game open for Georgia. He's a huge X factor in this game. Arch Manning is the X factor for Texas. Zachariah Branch is the X factor for Georgia. I don't think this game is solely going to come down to Gunnar Stockton being able to throw the football over Texas defense. I think it comes down to how many plays can you get Zachariah Branch the ball in his hands, and can he be able to break off a big 60, 50-yard yak for a touchdown? Because he's the kind of player that Georgia needs to really break this game open. He's the fastest receiver in the nation. He kind of is a mix of DeAnthony Thomas and Tavon Austin when he gets into the open field, and he leads Georgia in receptions and yards by a pretty wide margin. So they feature Zachariah Branch in this offense. Everybody talks about Zach Frazier and the 1-2 punch that they have at running back with the Illinois transfer that they have, but Zachariah Branch has been a huge revelation for this Georgia offense. And once you get him into space, there's not too many defenses that can get this guy on the ground. And it's pretty easy to get Zachariah Branch involved, rather it be jet sweeps, bubble screens, slants. So Zachariah Branch definitely is a huge impact player to watch in this game. And if Georgia ends up winning this one, I think Zachariah Branch goes off. Now, what concerns me about Georgia is their tendency to start the game out sluggish. They've had a few games like against Auburn when they came out slow, and then the second half they rallied and they got hot to end the game. I don't think you can afford to start off slow against Texas. Because Texas, if Arch Manning is playing some good football with how your defense has looked, it's going to be hard to get back into a game if Arch Manning is playing at his full potential. And unless your pass rush does something in this game that they've been unable to do all year long, which is get the quarterback on the ground, this isn't the kind of game that Georgia can afford to start slow in. Even though you do have the coaching advantage and you do have home field advantage on your side, I don't think Texas is going to be fazed by that. This is a talented team. This is a really good roster, one of the best in all of college football. And I don't think Georgia wants to fuck around and find out. And this is one of those games that Georgia needs to put together a very strong first half. Because if you start trying to come from behind against a hot Arch Manning, I don't think it's going to vote well for you. Overall, I'm going to take Texas to cover, but Georgia to win outright 31-27. Steve Sarkisian is kind of in that James Franklin territory. Not completely in it, but he hasn't had a lot of big marquee wins on his resume. Outside of going on the road and taking out Nick Saban in Alabama a few years ago, there's not really a lot of big statement wins that Steve Sarkisian has under his belt. Now, I know Longhorns fans are going to disagree with that. They're going to bring up Texas A&M last year. I understand that, but I just trust Kirby Smart a lot more in this game than I trust Steve Sarkisian. I think the coaching matchup could be a deciding factor in this game, along with the quarterback play. And although Arch has played some really good football, I think he can have a pretty good performance in this game. I don't know if he'll be able to take care of the ball. And Gunnar Stockton, you don't have the turnover concerns with him. And also, Georgia's run game, even if it doesn't get going, you just have to expect that Georgia just is going to find a way, because that's what they've been doing all season long. They have just found ways to survive and advance to the next week. Texas kind of has done the same thing, but even though Texas has the better team, in my opinion, it's just hard to bet against Kirby Smart and the Dogs. So I got to take Texas to cover, but I like Georgia to win outright. And I'm really conflicted because I want to take Texas to win. I really believe that this is a game that Arch Manning can get off, and he can really have his I have officially arrived moment. And even though Georgia's defense hasn't been good, at least they come away with key stops. In the fourth quarter, if you need to get off the field, Georgia's going to find a way to do so. So I like Georgia to win outright, but I'll take Texas to cover. Iowa versus USC. USC currently is a 6.5-point favorite at the moment. Iowa is a hard team to gauge. If you're judging them based off statistics and on the paper, they're an easy team to fade because they don't play great offense. They struggle to get the 20 points against quality competition, and they mostly win off elite defense and special teams. But Iowa plays a old school brand of football. Iowa, their objective in every game that they play is to make it ugly. They want it to be a 17-20, 17-14 kind of game. And if USC is held to under 24 points in this game, Iowa should be able to cover. And they have a great shot at being able to win, because USC's run defense has not been that good. Northwestern had a lot of success last week in the first half in that contest, running the football on that USC defense. Illinois, Notre Dame also had a lot of success running the football against USC along with Nebraska. But USC's run defense is a lot better when they're playing at home than when they're playing on the road. And it's really strange. I don't know if it's USC falling victim to the body clock, like what they did against Illinois, or just the weird travel with them being on the West Coast and have to travel nearly all the way across the country to play in these Big Ten games. But they just are a way better team defensively at home than what they are on the road. And if USC can shut down Iowa's rushing attack, this game can get out of hand, and it can get out of hand pretty quickly. Jayden Maiava is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And it also helps that he's throwing to arguably the best receiving duo in the country, and Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane. And I'll argue that both of these guys are just as good as Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate. Iowa defensively, though, is really great. They have a top 5, top 10 defense in the country. They're 4th in yards per game allowed. They are 7th in yards per play. They have a stout defensive line that can get after the quarterback. They also can hold their own against the run as well. And everything that Iowa is great at, USC struggles with. And Iowa also is very good in these Big Ten games against some of the better teams in this conference. They are 5-1 against the spread in these Big Ten games. And they only lost by 5 against Indiana, and they barely lost to Oregon. They only lost that game by 2. So Iowa, although they play an ugly old school brand of football, a lot of their strengths are USC's weaknesses. And I still don't know if USC's run defense, even though they are playing at home, are going to be able to slow down Iowa. We know what Iowa wants to do. Mark Gronowski, he's not going to light the world on fire throwing the football, but he's a tough, gritty quarterback. He's going to find a way to get tough yards. He just fits Iowa so perfectly. I don't think there's a better quarterback that better fits the identity of their team than Mark Gronowski. And he's going to have a few big plays here and there that he'll get on the ground, that he'll get throwing the football. And I think that explosive plays probably are going to play a big factor in who comes away with the W, because Iowa, they're not really trying to string together efficient drives. They're just trying to get a few big plays here and there that put them in scoring range and gives their defense a little bit of a break. But if USC gets out to a big lead early and Iowa has to come from behind to win it, then the game is all but over. Iowa's brand of football is really dangerous because you're basically banking on your defense being able to hold USC to under 24, and you're trying to win the field position battle. That's when special teams comes into play. Iowa, they won't be going for it a lot on 4th down. They have no problem punting that football, pinning you inside the 10, and trying to win that way. But with how well Jayden Maiava has played, along with these USC receivers being one of the best in college football, I just have to take USC to win. And I do expect Iowa to cover that plus 6.5 because Iowa is one of the best teams in the Big Ten at covering the spread, and they're going to be able to make this game close. I'll be shocked if USC blows Iowa away, only because Iowa's defense is outstanding on all 3 levels. Elite defensive line play, great linebackers, great secondary. And we've seen USC against Nebraska, against Illinois. They've had their fair share of struggles of being able to put up points against good defenses. And this is the best defense that USC has seen up to this point this season. Yes, this defense is better than Notre Dame's. It's going to be better than Oregon's. This is an outstanding defense. But with USC having the quarterback advantage and having a more trustworthy offense, I got them winning 23-20. They win outright. Iowa covers. The quarterback advantage is just too big for me to ignore. And although I don't know if King Miller will have a great day on the ground for USC, I don't really think it really comes down to USC being able to play complementary football. They got the better quarterback. And when you're in these big games, quarterback play normally makes the difference. And that's been the theme all this season that I haven't really heard a lot of big guys in the media talk about. When you have teams in these one possession contests, not just is coaching the difference, but which quarterback can make the big throws and clutch moments? Who can come away with the big play? And I think Jayden Maiava shows up and plays his best football late against Iowa, and that's why USC ends up getting the win in my book. I also want to be shocked if Iowa won this game. So I'm not going to play this game as far as money line goes. I'm going to stay away from it. But I definitely feel like Iowa, the cover plus 6.5 is one of the best plays that you can make all this week because USC can't stop the run. So Iowa's going to be able to put up some points on offense. If USC's run defense shows up, though, which I doubt that it will because it hasn't really shown up all this year unless you want to use that Michigan game, which I guess we can say that Michigan game was an outlier. Iowa will get some points, but at the end, I just think that USC has too much on offense, and that's why they end up winning this game by 3.